You know why I'm making this video, I assume. There was a shooting recently. An individual named Audrey Hale went to a Christian school and slaughtered several people with firearms, including 3 children. It's an act that I have not seen anybody defending online. I certainly don't. Nobody watching this video will defend it, so I consider the moral matter of that issue settled. There was, however, a unique element to this shooting. Audrey, despite being initially identified as a female, apparently goes by he, him pronouns. So, a trans man, then, presumably. And as you might expect, given the current media environment surrounding transgender people, specifically from the right wing, this has taken off. Now, obviously, a shooting from a transgender individual is a pretty noteworthy event in this environment, in large part because they're so rare. This graph is from Soaked on Left. You can thank him for it. These are mass shootings by gender status, the term he uses, between 2018 and 2023. And here we have a very proportional 2,826 cisgender attributed mass shootings to transgender people's 3. Really underperforming there. See, if transgender people committed mass shootings at a rate proportional to their representation in the population, you would expect something a little bit closer to 1 in every 100 shootings being from a transgender person. In fact, we're seeing more like 1 out of every 1,000. Of course, you might be wondering, why am I immediately talking about the relative rarity of transgender people committing mass shootings? And that is, of course, because the right wing has exploded with this. They have taken off. In an effort to keep the hate train against transgender people rolling, they are talking about the mass disarmament of trans people. They are talking about gender ideology having directly led to these attacks. They are talking about transgender people being innately dangerous. They are using it in essentially the same way that you saw conservatives use anything bad done by Muslim people after 9/11 to denounce, to attack, to castigate the entire group. This isn't new. The disproportionate fixation of a minority's wrongdoings in order to justify hatred against them is a long-standing propaganda tactic. It goes back before mass media. If you want to use an example from a relatively, a rarely cited historical group, well, we could say that the Nazis did, in fact, use any wrongdoing from any Jewish citizen of Germany, perceived or real, in order to justify the laws that were made against them, the crimes committed against them. Der Stürmer, was constantly putting out articles on how this thing has been done by a Jew and this thing is done by a Jew. Germany back in the 1930s was a big country. The United States today has 330 million people. If you wanted to fill a newspaper with stories of transgender people doing bad things, you could, but you'd have to fill 1,000 more with the bad things cisgender people have done. We have seen mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting being done by obviously cisgender people. I mean, how many times in all of the stories surrounding these 2,826 shootings have you even seen the term cisgender brought up? From white people, from men. That's the actual group that disproportionately commits violence, by the way. Overwhelmingly so, it's men. And at every point, the right wing has been resistant. No, it is about mental illness. It's about lone wolf shooters. It's about this, that, the other. One school shooting by a transgender person. And it's the entire group who are violent, who are deranged. I have seen a tide of right-wing hate today in the past 24 hours, and a lot of it is directed against the idea of transgender people enthusiastically arming themselves for the purposes of our constitutionally protected right to self-defense. The Second Amendment, of value, a legal basis so often, at least nominally cherished by the right wing, has been completely abandoned. And seemingly, the mere capacity for any transgender individual to commit a crime is sufficient to question the right for the entire group to arm themselves. I've even seen people direct this specifically to me. I've always been a fervent advocate for the right to arm yourself in self-defense. I've always said that the right is violent, is At the moment genocidal against trans people, they have explicitly said that they want to eradicate trans people, though they euphemize it by saying transgenderism in a manner akin to the way in which Nazis have long talked about Jewish Bolshevism, Judaism, or whatever else, as a way of making clear their points without directly targeting the individual in a way that might set them a flag of any variety of laws when it comes to planning to commit terror. And given that environment, the idea of transgender people arming themselves to potentially defend against any stochastic terrorism for the right, it's a principle I've always defended. It is a principle that I continue to defend. Look at social media right now. An entire political party is using the incredibly disproportionately rare mass shooting of a single member of the transgender community to attack all trans people. And they are doing so in exactly the same way that reactionary movements have historically done when it comes to depriving a minority group of their rights. If a single crime is committed by any one of them, if a single Jewish person gets too feisty at a bar and starts a fight, does one murder, oh, sure, lock them up for murder, fine, but no, it's never enough. It always has to be directed against the group. This, they say, is why this entire group is a threat to us, to our way of living. I believe Matt Walsh literally said, he can't make it more explicit if he tried. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be subtle. I believe he said, in all my life, I have never seen as great of an evil as transgenderism or something, as though it is the existence of trans people or the imagined ideology of which permits their existence in their mind that led to this, as though there's something in transgender validation or acknowledging their existence, providing them healthcare and civil rights that entails an implicit defense of school shootings, something which, again, I must keenly remind you, have been predominantly the domain of white men for a long, long time, and still is. If you want to go by explicit ideologies, overwhelmingly, when we look at political killings done by members of an extremist political group, we see an enormously disproportionate representation from the far right, then jihadists, who are, again, far right. It's basically the same ideology, except with Islam instead of Christianity. And then you have the incel ideology, then you have black separatists, and then you have the far left wing, down there, radically underperforming, as trans people do in their mass shooting graph. I hope the average American is capable of understanding that this delusional, hysterical redirection of anger towards trans people based on a single data point from an otherwise massively disproportionately small representation in school shootings or mass shootings, I hope the average American looks at this and goes, wow, the far right sure is absolutely hysterical. They are insane. They are obsessive. They will take any excuse they can. A transgender person gets into a car accident, transgender ideology creating the most dangerous roadways America's ever seen. Transgender person throws a fit at a restaurant because they got the wrong order. Transgender people are ruined dining. They'll do this for anyone. They'll do this for everyone. It's not going to stop. As long as we exist in a country where one half of our political body is intent on the complete eradication of a social group, they will take any excuse and opportunity they can to bring that about. And again, not to lay it on too thick with the historical parallels, but yeah, this is exactly what the Nazis did. It's never enough just to create the propaganda, to tell the story. You have to elevate and you have to over-report on every excuse you're given to denounce a group. It doesn't matter what their proportional representation is. It doesn't matter whether it was likely or to happen. It doesn't matter what caused it. You just look at any story you can take and you throw it out there. I guarantee you, there will be more coverage of this shooting than there was of the Q Club shooting, even though that was a far-right fascist who shot up and killed queer people at a club explicitly and unambiguously motivated by far-right ideology. But no, there will be more coverage of this than that because the far right will be talking about this forever. You'll be hearing about this year, next year, the year after that. You know, if this was such a frequent event, I bet they'd have more examples to pull from. It's why you keep seeing in the conservative thumbnails, that one crying lady who was upset that Donald Trump won back in 2016. You've been seeing that lady for like 7 years now because, I mean, that's all they have. Those are the examples they pull from, scarce as they are. I found the tweet from Matt Walsh. I came to the conclusion years ago that the trans movement is the greatest evil our country faces. I only become more and more sure of this fact with each passing day and more determined to oppose it until my last breath. Did he say this when it was cisgender people shooting, white people shooting, conservatives shooting, men shooting, straight people shooting? No. And we know why. In this media environment, I think we can interpret this behavior from the far right as a reaffirmation of their intent to eradicate trans people as a social group. And I fully support their right to exercise their Second Amendment privileges to own firearms in case they are ever attacked and to defend themselves within the grounds of the law. Anybody who disagrees with that is literally giving the exact same justification Hitler gave to disarm the Jews, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Anybody who plays along with that rhetoric, the idea, oh, well, by advocating self-defense, you're actually responsible for every bad thing a member of a group does. No. Apparently the shooter had a manifesto. I don't think it's released yet, and I don't know what it says. It could be anything from a deranged scrawl of personal misgivings to that particular school. It could be nonsense. It could be some kind of political screed. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be deranged. Normal people don't shoot up schools and kill children. So whatever it ends up saying, it has no effect on anything that I've said in this video. The worst case scenario from an optical perspective would be that the manifesto is some deranged screed on how the only way to defend trans people against conservative aggression is to kill school children. If this person says that in their manifesto, he's dead now, that's deranged. It does not take away from the necessity to make appropriate preparations to defend yourself against conservative aggression. You know, you're not responsible for every single unhinged direction a person takes otherwise legitimate advice. All the same, right now the ultimate victims are the families of those who were killed at the school. So I wish them all the best in the world. I sincerely hope that their lives are not further tormented by the deranged attention brought to them by the far right, because they will no doubt be made to be martyrs and voices for what they want to be an anti-trans hit piece. So hopefully they find peace soon. To all trans people, look at the media, see what they're saying about you. Look at the far right, see what they want to do to you. I think it speaks for itself. And to the far right, a lot of you are just sick people. But if you actually do care about, stopping mass shootings, I have no idea why you think transgender people are the problem. The fact that you all jump on that the moment you're given the opportunity means that you are either fully aware of the fact that you are political hacks who are weaponizing an incident that has nothing to do with trans people against a minority group you hate, or you could maybe just be like really stupid. Both are possibilities. I mean, it's probably both.